Hello, recording people. We're getting started.
The soil holds the past. It shows us where we've been.
Okay, I'm restarting because I'm not sure it was sharing what I wanted it to share. Okay, let's try one more time.
The soil unfolds our history and knows where we begin. The soil nurtures life. It grows all that we need. The soil unfurls a mystery and sows a sacred seed. God, let it grow in me. Send down your rain and light, and with your help we'll be the soil to bring the world to life. Bring us to it's known it all along. The soil can hear the distant hum of restoration song. The soil contains our hope. It pushes out green shoots. The soil proclaims the antidote is growing deeper roots. God, let them grow in me. Send down your rain and light, and with your help we'll be the soil to bring the world to life. God, let them grow in me. Send down your soil to bring the world to life. Bring us to life. Bring us to life. Bring us to
Hello, friends, and welcome. You have arrived at the 6th session of the EcoPreacher Cohort, a program being offered by the BTS Center and Creation Justice Ministries. You each are one of over 100 preachers who have committed to spending a year together, learning from and with one another, and offering companionship in a time when many are sensing both an individual isolation and a species loneliness. Today, we'll hear an update from Reverend Dr. Leah Shade on some of the things our research team is observing in the intake data. We'll also be spending a good chunk of time in kinship circle conversations inspired by Rabbi Yonatan Neral's presentation from last month. Finally, we're going to be introducing an eco-preaching assignment that aims to create a resource for you and others. Thank you once again for choosing to be here today with this group of people. As you probably now know, my name is Nicole Dieroff. I'm ordained in the United Church of Christ and serve as program director at the BTS Center, where we are working on spiritual leadership for a climate-changed world and offering programs of continuing education and spiritual and vocational formation. One thing I wanted to share with you today is that we are offering group spiritual direction circles for clergy in liminal times. And we have a few slots left for our groups that are starting in May. So I'm popping that link in the chat if you're interested. I also want to offer thanks as we start to Madeline Bagot-Hart, our BTS Center seminary intern and EcoPreacher tender, who is managing tech today. And a word of welcome to Leah. We sometimes have members of our research team here with us, and Leah is going to be sharing today. And last but not least, I'm very glad to be here with my co-facilitator, Avery Davis Lamb, who's in transit. Let's see if you can successfully unmute Avery.
Hi, Nicole, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, hey everyone, good to be with you. Not yet in body, but certainly in spirit, and soon at least in video. Great to be at this 6th session with you all, reflecting that we've gone through 6 months, half a year together as this cohort, and what a gift it's been. I'm a co-executive director of Creation Justice Ministries. We're excited to be co-hosting this with the BTS Center. I want to first highlight an upcoming event with Creation Justice Ministries. Tomorrow, Friday at noon Eastern time, we are hosting an ecumenical Earth Day service. So if you would like to celebrate Earth Day with Christian siblings from across our Christian traditions, we invite you to join that. And I think someone will be dropping a link into the chat. Preaching at that service is Creation Justice Ministries' new theological education and training coordinator, Derek Weston, who I believe is joining us on the EcoPreacher call here today. So I wanted to introduce him to all of you. He'll be joining us in this space for the remainder of our time.
Thanks, Avery. The link is in the chat to sign up for that, and a warm welcome to Derek. Let's all say hello to one another. I invite you to open up the chat if you haven't already done so. As usual, we invite you to put on your digital name tag, indicating how you'd like to be known in this space. Your first and last name is especially helpful to get you into the correct kinship circle. And as you desire, please include titles, pronouns, and organizational affiliations. But let's just start off by saying hello to one another, sharing a word of greeting to your fellow eco-preachers. So go ahead and take a moment to say hi. Lovely. We have some locations. We have some Happy Earth Week greetings. Hello to each of you here today. And then to start unpacking one of our topics for conversation today, instant self-gratification as a potential root cause of the climate crisis. I invite you to share in the chat responses to 2 prompts, the first of which is an example of instant self-gratification that you observe in society today. What's an example of instant self-gratification that you observe in society today? I'm going to read at least a few of these so that people who are listening to the recording get a sense of what is shared. Amazon free shipping, Google, Amazon, period. Plastic water bottles, junk food, disposable coffee cups, easy credit, walking down the street looking at phones, prepackaged junk food, fast fashion, chocolate, fast food, a what have you done for me lately syndrome, wasting water on watering lawns, social media dopamine fixes from likes. That comment in the chat got a like. Thank you all. Okay, now let's shift to, and I invite you to keep reading these. Let's shift to, the next prompt is a religious practice that pushes back on instant self-gratification. What is a religious practice that pushes back on instant self-gratification? Meditation, fasting, prayer, Sabbath keeping, the labyrinth, contemplation, Advent, Lectio Divina, social justice, daily devotionals, forgiveness, trusting in God's abundance. Those are just some of the things that were offered in the chat. Thank you all for engaging those as we get rolling today. Our agenda is as follows. We are in our gathering time. We're going to gain some research insights with Leah, move into the majority of our time spent in kinship circles, where you'll get to continue this conversation about instant self-gratification and whether our preaching might have something to say about that. We'll come back for some reflecting and sharing and our closing. So let's dive in with Leah. As you know, we have woven significant research into and around this EcoPreacher cohort. Many thanks to those of you who completed the participant intake survey and shared the congregational pre-survey with leaders in your congregations. We had a really incredible response rate and have been working hard to unpack that data. Today, Leah Shade, who I would belovedly label as the matriarch of eco-preaching, and one of our research team collaborators, wants to share with you some of the early findings that we hope are helpful to you. This research is very much as, for you as it is for us. Leah.
All right, thanks so much, Nicole. I'm eager to share with you the things that we have learned about the surveys that we did of all of you, the intake surveys, and also with some of your congregational leaders. So what I'm going to share with you today very briefly, we're going to explore some of the commonalities and gaps between preachers and congregants on creation care messaging and ministries. And a shout out to Ben Yashua Davids and also Madeline Cohort, who did a lot of the digging into the qualitative data and pulled out the insights. I concentrated mostly on the quantitative data, and you'll see a fusion of those here. I actually want to start by sharing with you some of the latest research on religion and environment from the Pew Research Center. They surveyed over 10,000 Americans on their attitudes about the environment. And they found that highly religious Americans overwhelmingly at 92% say that God gave humans a duty to protect and care for the earth. That is great news. I don't think that number would have been this high even 10 years ago. So this is very encouraging. However, only 42% see climate change as a very serious problem. So that's a really big difference between saying that, yes, we're supposed to take care of this, but not seeing climate change as an issue that needs attention. They also found that only 8% of Americans are both highly religious and concerned about climate change. That number is just too small for a really robust movement of religious-based climate action. They also found that religiously affiliated Americans are less likely to be involved in activities to address climate change than their non-religious counterparts. So it's like the more religious you are, the less likely you are to be concerned about climate issues. Now, they also did some interesting questions about preaching. And they found that the majority of congregants, at 70%, say they are not hearing about climate change in sermons. The number is a little lower for mainline Protestants, which is a majority of this group at 63%, but that's still not a lot. And only 21% say they're talking about climate change with people in their congregation. Again, not enough to generate the kind of energy that we need for making a real impact on this issue. Now, what's interesting is in my 2023 survey on ministry, preaching, and social issues, which some of you filled out, 74% of respondents say they did preach a sermon in 2022 addressing climate change or caring for the environment or a related issue. I will tell you this is an increase from 47%, which we found in 2021, and even more of an increase over the 2017 survey, which only found 30% of preachers reporting this. So on the one hand, this is great to see these preachers reporting this. However, now, and of course, these are different data sets, but we have to ask ourselves, is there some kind of disconnect between what preachers are saying that they're preaching about and what congregants are hearing? And when we look now at our own surveys of you as EcoPreachers and some of your congregational leaders, I think you'll see some of these themes play out. So one of our questions is, how can we bridge the gap between what clergy preach and what congregants hear in order to better equip, empower, and accompany them for addressing the climate crisis? So let's look at the intake survey results from all of you from our EcoPreacher cohort. We had 94 respondents representing mostly the United States and 30 states. Our oldest respondent was 74, our youngest was 23, and the majority of the religions represented was Christian. Of those Christian respondents, 81% were mainline Protestant. And you can see here the breakdown of how those denominations fall in. So the majority are UCC, followed by DOC, then Episcopal, Lutheran, United Methodist, Presbyterian, and 16% were some other denomination. In terms of race and ethnicity, this is a largely white group at 90%. And it is more females than males, as you can see from this chart. In terms of the politics of this group, fairly progressive liberal politics. Now, when we asked about the kinds of the racial and ethnic diversity of your congregations, we found that 76% of respondents said that their congregants were white. So we have a white group of EcoPreachers serving mostly white congregations. We also asked if your congregation has an official ecology or creation care ministry, and the majority said not yet. So about 56% said this is something that's still in the works, so we've got some work to do there. Also, we found that 93% of you said that your congregation took part in some kind of creation-centered activity in the last 2 years. That's wonderful. That is really robust. And then we asked, to what degree do you feel that your congregation is engaged in climate-related or ecological concerns at this time? So 16% said there's really no engagement, so we're just getting started. About a quarter of you are saying that we're doing some education and starting to raise awareness. The majority of this group are in the sprouting phase, so at least you're doing something and really want to grow that. About 17% say that you're doing ongoing and significant engagement around these issues, and 3% say that you're doing so much you're starting to teach others how to do this work. We also asked, what percentage of your congregation do you feel is supportive of your house of worship being involved in climate and environmental advocacy or activism? And we found that only about 30% said that this is something that they would really be in favor of. And I want you to keep this in mind as we, when we look at the congregants or the congregational leaders, there's a difference there. Then we also asked, what do you think are barriers to people receiving the message that you're trying to preach when it comes to environmental issues? And the number one reason was people thinking that it's too political, and followed closely by lack of interest among the congregation. Now, this is also going to be different when we see what the congregational leaders say. So let's look at the congregational leaders. We had 172 respondents from 30 different congregations in 16 different states. The oldest there was 83, and the youngest respondent was 18. This group was also pretty progressive in terms of their politics, but definitely we saw more moderate and a little bit more conservative among this group. Now, this is important. We asked, how concerned are you about the planet and the environment or climate change? And 74% said that they are very concerned about the environment. So this is, I think this, I don't want to say good news that they're happy, that they're concerned about it, but just that it is on people's minds and they're thinking about it. And and this actually matches with some other research by EcoAmerica that found that 78% of Americans are concerned about environmental issues and climate change. So those two things match up really nicely. But here's the thing, half of them think that the majority of their congregation would not be supportive of the church being involved in environmental or climate advocacy. Now remember, that number was about 30% when you all talked about this. So there's definitely, like, if I'm concerned, but I don't think my fellow congregants are concerned about this. So there's a mismatch. And you saw earlier that only 22% are talking about this in their congregations. So we're just not having the awareness, the conversations that can generate, again, the energy that we need to address this in a powerful way. Now, in terms of the importance of creation care, when we talked to when we surveyed these congregational leaders, 85% want to see their congregation become more involved with caring for the environment. 89% said that connecting their faith and their love of nature is important to them. And 91% said they believe the teachings of the Bible or their religion call them to care for the environment. Again, matching up very nicely with what we see from the Pew Research. But when we asked why more people are not engaged in climate action, we asked their opinions. Here's what we found. Most of them say that it's not about politics for their fellow congregants. So there's a strong contrast between what the responses of you all are, the EcoPreachers, and your congregational leaders. You all thought it was politics, but according to these congregational leaders, It's really about being old and tired, just not having the energy, just, we want to do this, but we're just so, we don't have the energy for this. So I think that's something that we need to be aware of as we're doing this work. Now, of course, politics definitely comes up. It's on there, but it's much lower on the list. We also found that EcoPreacher participants frequently attributed congregational unwillingness to disinterest. And this is a quote from one of you. The unwillingness generally comes from people who acknowledge that climate change is an issue, but don't think that it's a church issue. They want us to focus on other areas of social justice or want us to spend more time in pastoral care and fellowship. They see it as a zero-sum game and are not filled with the urgency that many of the rest of us are. Now, this contrasts with what the congregational leader said. They are saying that people are interested, but they simply don't know what to do. Here's a quote from one of them. I think we struggle with what, how, where. There's so much to be done. I wonder if we are overwhelmed on where to start. Another thing that we found was a level of vocational disconnect. Now, what do we mean by that? So many of the eco-preachers and congregational leaders struggle to articulate how their religious identity connects with climate change. So they say that it's important, but they can't articulate it. So congregational leaders are thinking mostly about this in terms of technology and policy lenses, or some of them don't believe that their faith really has much of an impact on this moment. Even those who think that climate change is important don't see their Christian identity as offering anything unique to a climate changed world. They don't see it as a natural expression of their faith. It's just one more in a long list of social justice issues. So here are some underdeveloped areas that we see having potential for more robust engagement. Engaging environmental issues through local lenses and issues, theological and spiritual practices with nature. Along those same lines, connecting with nature and cultivating deeper kinship with creation. So getting that relationship. And then finally, I want to share with you some of the questions that we're going to be investigating as we continue in this work. How do churches and their leaders understand their vocational connection to the climate crisis? In what ways do congregations and their pastors understand the climate crisis differently? And in what ways do they understand what it would look like to engage these issues in their day-to-day life? What do these participants imagine the means to an end to be? Is it a closer relationship with God's creation? Is it saving the planet? What is the hope for result of this creation care? And finally, when preachers and congregational members identify spiritual practices or theological framing as important, where do they turn? What is drawing them? What is energizing them? So thank you again for filling out these surveys. We're going to be doing this again when the cohort comes to an end, both with your leaders and with you, so that we can see what shifts have happened after you have taken part in this program over the course of this year. So you might be talking about some of these in your groups. I'll make this PowerPoint available and they'll put it up on the website as a PDF. And hopefully this will spark more conversation with all of us.
Thank you so much, Leah. Thank you for that review of lots and lots of data. So this is being recorded and those slides will be available on the participants page. So this work that we are doing, it is for you. Thank you, Leah. So we're going to shift into kinship circles, and our plan is for you to spend 30 to 35 minutes with your group today, as has been our practice. Your group may be combined with another for attendance reasons, but we hope that at least some of the people are familiar to you each time. And someone from our research team may be listening in on your kinship circle conversation. They'll say hello and be present, not as a participant, but simply to observe how the content we've introduced is being discussed in your small group. If you're uncomfortable with that for any reason, please just let that person know. So here are our discussion prompts. And because we have discovered that Zoom inconveniently wipes away the chat when you go into your breakout room, I would suggest you try and copy these so you can reference them when you're in your small group. Hopefully at least someone in your small group knows how to copy and then paste it back into the next chat. So first, introduce or check in with one another. If there's something from Leah's presentation that you want to share that raised a question for you or that you really resonated with or found super interesting, feel free to do that as you check in with one another. Then the main conversation we're hoping you might have today is inspired by Rabbi Yonatan Neral's presentation when he shared that instant self-gratification is one of the root causes of the climate crisis. So we're inviting you to discuss some of what you saw flying through the chat as people were checking in today in terms of examples of instant self-gratification and then religious practices that push back against instant self-gratification. What did you share? What did you see there that sparked some interest for you? And then we hope that you'll move into this conversation of how might your preaching speak to and invite multi-generational long-term thinking and decision-making. And to get things going on that, I wanted to share with you a quote from Sherry Mitchell's article in the All We Can Save collection, All We Can Save: Truth, Courage, and Solutions for the Climate Crisis. Sherry Mitchell is a member of the Penobscot Nation and lives here in Maine. And her essay is titled Indigenous Prophecy and Mother Earth. So this is one paragraph of her essay speaking to the indigenous understanding of multi-generational reciprocity. She says, for us, time does not exist as separate epochs, separate epochs. I think I'm saying that word wrong. Unfolding in linear fashion, but as one movement unfolding in all directions simultaneously. We realize that we cannot separate ourselves from those who have come before us or those who will follow, because we all exist together in this one moment. The harm experienced by our ancestors is felt in our bodies today, and the harm we create today will be experienced by our future generations tomorrow. We are all inextricably linked through these shared experiences that cross time. Our sense of responsibility for the coming generations is reflected in this awareness. It is this way of life that has allowed us to exist in a balanced relationship with our local ecosystems for more than 10,000 years. And it is this sacred way of life that can bring humanity back into alignment with a future that not only ensures human survival on Earth, but also nurtures a mended relationship between human beings and all other life. So not only indigenous wisdom speaks to ancestors past and future, this is deeply grounded in Christian theology as well. So I hope that in your kinship circles, you might have a chance to unpack that. And if you have time, I have a conversation number 2 there to play around with a topic you've been longing to preach about. My guess is you may spend most of your time on that first conversation. Today, your gentle facilitator is the person in your circle who most recently went for a swim in a natural body of water. So that's also how you can begin introducing yourselves, when the last time was that you went for a swim. As a reminder, the gentle facilitator is simply responsible for helping to keep track of time and making sure everyone's voice is heard. And if you're uncomfortable with this role or have filled it a bunch of times in the past because randomly you've been the person, feel free to pass it off if it's not what you would like to be doing today. We'll be bringing you back at 2:05 or shortly after. I'll send you a 5-minute remaining little note in your kinship circles, and then you'll get that minute countdown timer. Madeline, thank you so much for arranging our breakout rooms. enjoy your conversations. Okay, we're starting to get some people back, so I'm starting the recording again, and in 30 seconds, the Zoom room will be full.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. I think everyone's trickled back in here. So as with our practice, let's take just 2 minutes after our kinship circles to just quietly collect your thoughts, reflect on the conversation, jot something down to yourself. And as you know, after this, we'll share some thoughts in the chat. So if you want to start typing those in the chat as well, you're welcome to do so. Okay. Start sharing in the chat. What resonated with you? What's popping out for you from your kinship circles today? Drop them in the chat and I'll read through some of these. Larry, reflecting on, it's always good to share thoughts with fellow EcoPreachers, the community that we have here. Reverend Gage, we ought to be very careful when we talk about, quote, making sacrifices. Some people, some communities have already sacrificed or been sacrificed for our current unhealthy way of life. Such a lot of work to do. Carolyn Sharp grant writing, Lilly Foundation, Patagonia, source for grant writing related to eco-justice, wanting more knowledge about that. Reverend Allison Patton framing composting as a spiritual practice. Kip talking about self-gratification being fueled in part by the intense speed of life in daily living, and following up with Sabbath keeping being very countercultural. Commitment to living local, being mindful of people with other viewpoints. Great. Well, thanks everyone. Keep dropping those in the chat. And we are going to move over to closing announcements. So I'm glad to share that our next session on May 18th, our presenter will be Claudio Carvalhes, who is a professor at Union Theological Seminary. He is a ritualist. And so we will be talking about ritual, liturgy, and eco-preaching, and thinking about how our own movement of preaching can fit into broader movements of worship. So we're really excited to have him join us. He has an edited volume called Ritual at World's End that if you want to read through before next time, that could enrich our conversation here together. And with that, I'll pass it over to Nicole with more information about this EcoPreacher assignment and invitation we have for you all.
Thanks, Avery. And I saw at least one person do motions of excitement for our next presenter, so hurrah. So we wanted to share with you today an assignment that was inspired by someone in this group. And it might be no surprise that what we would be asking you to do is preach an eco sermon. You are eco preachers, and so we're hoping that you would preach a sermon between now and our July EcoPreacher cohort session. So you have a few months to do this. And as part of that, to create a synopsis of your sermon that would be written for fellow preachers. So a description in a paragraph of where you tried to go in this sermon. We're hoping to compile these with scripture reference, synopsis, and then some searchable keywords. And this is really meant to be a resource for all of you. We'll be compiling this in a way that you're able to engage with it on the participants page. So that if you either have a scripture reference or a theme that you're going after, that you might be able to search and find a little description of what someone did and be able to have ideas sparked from the way that they approached their sermon. There is a vision of potentially someday actually creating kind of a video library or library of sermon manuscripts. For now, we're starting with synopses, but we'll be putting together a survey, a form that you're able to complete with your name and the synopsis and the scripture reference. And we'll also have places for, if you have it, for you to either upload the manuscript or the video, with the possibility that we may create that rich resource going forward. If you share the intent, the primary intention is for this group, but we will have some opportunities for you to give permission to Creation Justice Ministry and the BTS Center to potentially create a broader resource that's accessible to more people beyond people in this cohort. So you'll see those questions in there. This is also another moment to contribute to the research associated with this project. And so in that form, we actually have a couple questions, 4 questions for you to reflect on. That's going to go back to our research team. So you'll be getting all of these details by email, including Leah has put together for you a sermon talkback guide. So this may be something you've experimented with in the past, or it may not be, but we wanted to equip you to potentially invite a few people into conversation with you following the sermon. And the questions are not, did you like it or not like it? The questions are inviting people to reflect on what they heard in your message. So we'll be sharing that guide with you. And if you're able to preach an eco sermon and do a talkback session, we'll have a place where you can upload some notes from that conversation. Our research team will be really interested to see how that talkback session went. Avery and I will be available with any questions you might have as you work on this over the next few months. But you can look to your email with all sorts of details. For all we know, you've been preaching eco sermons like crazy, and this will just be a chance to actually share with us what you've been up to. Or maybe not. Maybe this is now the good excuse to take a sermon like this on in an intentional way.
Great. Thanks, Nicole. I want to just invite everyone again to the Ecumenical Earth Day service tomorrow, hosted by Creation Justice Ministries. It's also a great opportunity to hear an eco sermon from Derek Weston, who will be preaching there tomorrow. And then a reminder of our participants page. So I'll drop the link to our participants page in the chat here, but that's where you can find the recording from today. We'll have the slides from Dr. Leah Shade up there and a whole host of other helpful resources. So check that out. There's the link and the passcode in the chat. And as we come to a close, I ask that you all join me in this sending blessing. May you go forth from this community, from this covenanted space in power and in love, to be eco-preachers in our communities. Amen.
The soil holds the past. It shows us where we've been. The soil unfolds our history and knows where we begin. The soil nurtures life, it grows all that we need. The soil unfurls a mystery and sows a sacred seed. God, let it grow in me. Send down your rain and light, and with your help we'll be the soil to bring the world to life. Bring us to life. The soil knows what will come. It's known it all along. The soil can hear the distant hum of restoration song. The soil contains our hope. It pushes out green shoots. The soil proclaims the antidote is growing deeper roots. God, let them grow in me. Send down your rain and light, and with your help we'll be the soil to bring the world to life. God, let them grow in me. Send down your rain and light, and with your help we'll be the soil to bring the world to life. Bring us to life. Bring us to life. Bring us to life.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good Thursday. Have a good Earth Day. Blessings to you.